My sister offered my husband $62,500 to leave me, not to invest in a business, not to settle a debt. She literally tried to buy my marriage like it was a piece of furniture she wanted in her living room. The shocking part? He accepted the money and walked away without even looking back. My parents called it fate. My relatives called it karma. My sister called it proof that she had always deserved the better life. I lost my husband, my family, and the only home I had ever known in a single afternoon. They celebrated while I packed my bags. But exactly 48 hours later, the celebration ended. A single conversation exposed a secret my sister had hidden from everyone, including her own husband. And before that weekend was over, the same woman who proudly bought my marriage watched her own marriage collapse right in front of her. That's when everyone finally understood who had really lost. My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 28 years old. Until a year ago, I believed loyalty mattered more than money. I had been married to my husband, Daniel, for 4 years. We weren't wealthy, but we had a small apartment, steady jobs, and enough love to make every struggle feel temporary. At least, that's what I believed. My younger sister, Vanessa, had always lived differently. She chased expensive things, admired powerful people, and treated every family gathering like a competition she intended to win. My parents adored her confidence, especially after she married a successful real estate developer. Compared to her glamorous life, Daniel and I looked painfully ordinary. One Friday evening, my parents invited everyone over for dinner, insisting they had something worth celebrating. The atmosphere felt unusually cheerful. Vanessa smiled across the table with a confidence that immediately made me uncomfortable. Halfway through dinner, she placed a thick envelope beside Daniel's plate. "I have an offer for you," she said casually. Everyone laughed, expecting another one of her dramatic jokes. Daniel opened the envelope. His smile disappeared. Inside was a cashier's check for $62,500. Vanessa folded her hands and looked directly at him. "Leave, Emily. Sign the divorce papers quietly, take the money, and start over." The room fell silent. I waited for my parents to scold her. Instead, my father chuckled. My mother shrugged and whispered, "Sometimes life gives people better opportunities." Then Daniel slowly picked up the check. Without looking at me once, he said quietly, "I'll accept." In that single moment, my marriage ended, and I realized I had just lost far more than a husband. 48 hours can feel like a lifetime when everyone you trusted disappears at the same time. I packed 2 suitcases, left the apartment without saying goodbye, and checked into the cheapest extended stay hotel I could find on the edge of town. Every room smelled faintly of bleach and old carpet, but at least nobody there knew my name. Daniel's lawyer emailed the divorce papers before sunset the next day. There wasn't even a message from Daniel himself. Just legal documents and instructions where to sign. 4 years together had been reduced to a few pages of printed paper. I tried calling my parents 3 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. Vanessa blocked me on every social media account before midnight. Yet somehow, photos still reached me through mutual friends. There they were, smiling at expensive restaurants, posing beside luxury cars, acting as though my marriage had never existed. The captions hurt almost as much as the pictures. Some people are simply meant to win. I nearly threw my phone across the room. Then, on the second evening, an unfamiliar Illinois number appeared on my screen. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. A calm woman's voice said, "Emily, you don't know me, but I know exactly what your sister has told everyone." My heart stopped. She continued, "And almost every word of it is a lie." Before I could ask another question, she quietly added, "If you want the truth, meet me tomorrow at 11. Come alone." Then the line went dead. The next morning, I drove to a quiet coffee shop on the far side of the city. I arrived 15 minutes early, expecting another cruel prank. Instead, a woman in her 40s walked in carrying a worn leather folder. She introduced herself as Rebecca, an accountant who had worked for my brother-in-law, Michael, for nearly 6 years. She looked nervous before speaking. "Your sister doesn't know I'm here," she said. "But someone deserves the truth." She opened the folder and carefully slid several copies across the table. The first was a bank record showing the $62,500 transfer. The second was a timeline of financial transactions made only days before Vanessa offered Daniel the money. Then came printed text messages. My hands trembled as I read them. Vanessa hadn't paid Daniel because she loved him. She paid him because she was desperate. Rebecca explained that Michael had recently begun reviewing their shared finances after noticing money missing from one of their investment accounts. Vanessa needed a believable explanation before he discovered where the missing funds had gone. If she could convince everyone she had willingly used the money to win Daniel, the missing transfer would look intentional instead of suspicious. Everything suddenly made sense. This had never been a love story. It had been a cover story. I thanked Rebecca, gathered every document, and slipped them back into the folder. Then my phone buzzed. The caller ID read Michael. I almost didn't answer the call. After everything that had happened, I wasn't interested in hearing another excuse from someone connected to my family. But something told me this was different. Michael's voice sounded calm, almost exhausted. "Emily," he said, "I need to ask you one question. Did Vanessa really pay Daniel because they were in love?" I closed my eyes before answering. "No," I said quietly, "but I think you deserve to see why." An hour later, we met in a quiet conference room at his office. He looked nothing like the confident businessman everyone admired. Dark circles framed his eyes, and his wedding ring kept turning nervously around his finger. I placed Rebecca's folder on the table. "I won't tell you what to think," I said. "Just look at the dates." He read every page without interrupting. The bank transfer, the text messages, the financial timeline. Every document told the same story. Halfway through the folder, his breathing changed. He leaned back, stared at the ceiling for several long seconds, then rubbed both hands across his face. "So," he whispered, "she lied to me before she lied to everyone else." I nodded but said nothing. There was nothing left to add. He carefully returned every document to the folder, stood up, and thanked me with a voice that barely sounded like his own. Before leaving, he paused at the door. "I have one more place I need to be." Then he quietly walked away. The following evening, my parents hosted another family dinner. This time, it wasn't to celebrate a birthday or anniversary. It was to celebrate Vanessa and Daniel. I wasn't invited, of course. But later, Hannah, my cousin, told me exactly what happened. She had been there from the beginning. Vanessa wore a white designer dress and smiled like she had conquered the world. Daniel stood beside her, looking strangely distracted while my parents toasted to new beginnings. My mother even joked that life had a funny way of putting the right people together. Then the front door opened. Michael walked in carrying a single black suitcase. The room instantly fell silent. He calmly placed his wedding ring on the dining table. "I know where the money went," he said, looking directly at Vanessa. "And I know why you lied." Vanessa's confident smile disappeared. She tried explaining, talking faster with every sentence, but Michael never interrupted. When she finally stopped, he simply shook his head. "I married someone I trusted," he said quietly. "Not someone who manipulates people and then builds happiness on deception." He picked up his suitcase. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. As he reached the doorway, Vanessa begged him not to leave. He paused only long enough to answer. "You spent $62,500 trying to buy someone else's marriage." Then he looked back one final time. "You just lost your own." The front door closed. And so did the celebration. By the next morning, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. This time, it wasn't because anyone wanted to apologize. My parents wanted someone to blame. My mother left 3 voicemails accusing me of destroying Vanessa's marriage. My father called me selfish, insisting that if I had stayed quiet, the family could have worked everything out. I listened to every message once. Then I deleted them. Over the next few days, the truth spread through our relatives faster than any rumor ever had. People who had ignored me suddenly wanted to hear my side of the story. A few even admitted they had believed Vanessa, because confidence had always sounded more convincing than honesty. Daniel called twice. On the third attempt, I finally answered. He said he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. He admitted that the money had blinded him and that he now understood exactly who Vanessa really was. When he asked if we could meet and talk, I thanked him for being honest. Then I quietly said no. Some broken things shouldn't be repaired. Instead of chasing the people who had walked away from me, I signed a lease on a small apartment, accepted a promotion at work, and began building a life that belonged only to me. For the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. 6 months have passed since the night my sister watched her own marriage fall apart. Today, I wake up in a home that feels peaceful instead of tense. My apartment isn't large, but every corner belongs to me. I decorated it with plants, framed photographs, and bright colors that remind me life can begin again, even after it falls apart. I haven't spoken to Vanessa since that dinner. I don't know whether she regrets what she did. And honestly, I no longer need to know. The greatest lesson I learned wasn't that karma exists or that people eventually face consequences. It was realizing that losing the wrong people can make room for the right life. Looking back, I understand something I couldn't see through my tears. My sister believed she had purchased my husband for $62,500. What she really bought was the truth. She exposed Daniel's loyalty, revealed my family's priorities, and unknowingly gave me the courage to walk away from people who never truly stood beside me. She thought she had taken everything from me. Instead, she gave me the one thing money could never buy: my freedom.